Welcome to the Hustler's Handbook Podcast. I'm Easton. In this show, we explore the stories of relentless go-getters, uncovering the secrets behind their success. We talk life, work, and everything in between. The highs, the lows, and the grit it takes to keep pushing forward. Tune in and get inspired right here on the Hustler's Handbook Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Hustler's Handbook Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Johnson. Our guest today is real estate broker and teacher salary consultant, Gus Montgomery. Gus, welcome to the show.
Easton, my fellow Coug, man, I appreciate you having me on.
For sure. Give the listeners a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So after I graduated from Washington State University, go Cougs, I was actually a PE teacher for 11 years. I did 5 years in Federal Way Public Schools as an elementary PE teacher, and then 6 years as a middle school PE teacher in Seattle. After my third year of teaching, those student loan payments started to come around, and I was kind of struggling for a little bit. The teacher salary back then in 2012, 2013 is not what it is today. And I was struggling for a bit financially with the credit card payments, student loan payments. And so I'll actually tell you a story. So every summer, a lot of teachers get a summer job. And so a lot of people hear about the summer breaks for teachers, but a lot of teachers are grinding in the summer. A lot of teachers do summer school. But my whole thing was I was a camp counselor. I was a summer camp counselor. I was doing that for summers during my college years and my first few years of teaching. And after my third year of teaching, I was the middle school camp counselor for Issaquah Parks and Rec. But that summer, I wanted to make more money. The camp counselor job was giving me 40 hours per week, but I wanted to do more. So I got a second job that same summer as a food runner for a movie theater called Cinebar. And for those that don't know, it's like one of those places where a server comes to your seat when you're watching a movie, asks you for your food and drink orders. And I was basically the busboy. I came by, gave you your food, and cleaned up the movie theater when the movie was done. So that summer, I worked about 60 hours per week. And the thing about the movie theater is you have to work every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that's the busiest days for the movie theater. And it was fun. I enjoyed doing the camp counselor job and the movie theater job. But at the end of the summer, I realized I didn't have a day off in 6 weeks. I worked every single day during my summer break as a teacher for 6 weeks. And I was like, man, there has to be a better way to go about my career. I still love teaching, but I'm kind of living check by check. Most of my income is going into my student loan payments. I was living in Seattle at the time, so I was learning how to live on my own. So basically, I did some Google research, and this is back in like 2015, 2016, about supplemental income for teachers. A lot of things popped up, personal training, blogging, and things like that. But then I found like this random blog about how this teacher was a real estate agent and talked about the pros and cons of being a teacher with a real estate license. And he talked about the flexible hours, how you can show homes after school, on the weekends. And this was a random blog. Like, this is 2015, 2016. Like, becoming a real estate agent today is a lot easier because you have social media, Google, YouTube, Netflix. But back then, it was kind of like I'm just kind of figuring it out on my own. But that one blog, made sense to me. So I started doing more research about real estate. I was using Craigslist to find job postings for real estate agent as 2016. And I just started calling real estate offices. I'm like, hey, how do I become a real estate agent? Some kind of gave me the cold shoulder because, you're a teacher. I don't think it's going to be a good fit for you. Most didn't answer my calls or didn't return my messages, but a couple did. And I got my license like within the year, and I was doing both real estate and teaching for 8 years at the same time. And my focus was residential. So I was helping people buy or sell their houses, helping families find their homes. That was my focus as a real estate agent. And I was doing both for 8 years. As a teacher, I mean, you work in the school, so you wear a lot of hats as a teacher. So not only was I a PE teacher, but also was the school's athletic director. So I was in charge of all the after-school sports, hiring the coaches, helping the team sign up, jersey, equipment inventory, and I was a basketball coach. I was doing that, plus I had my real estate business as well. So during the school year, I had a really fun time, but I was getting really busy as like real estate started to pick up. And we can go back to this later, but my first few years of real estate, I really struggled to find business, but the last few years definitely picked up. And I always wanted to try real estate like 100%, even though I was still doing a good job of managing my time. As you know, being in a school building, you're there from like 8 to 4. Sometimes you're there a little bit later. You're drained. Working with kids is fun, but it's mentally and it can be physically draining. So last year, teaching year 11, I kind of got the itch to, give real estate my 100% attention. And, being a teacher was the foundation of who I am today. So working with kids, that is the passion, building rapport with the younger generations, especially my last few years working in Seattle Public Schools. A lot of my students now are in college. They're playing college sports, doing big things out there. That's the foundation of who I am. But, someday I want to have a family. And I know that doing all this work, it was going to, it wasn't going to be sustainable for a long period of time if I want to continue to grow my business. And I was still good at teaching. I still enjoyed it. And I feel like a lot of teachers get burned out. And I wasn't burned out, but I did want to just try the business side of things. So during my 11th year of teaching, I decided to jump into real estate 100%. And as of today, it's been about 1 year since I left teaching to focus on my real estate career.
And what has been the biggest challenge so far making that jump from teaching to real estate? Because it's quite a difference in professions.
Yeah, and I do have the benefit of, being a real estate agent for 8 years before I made the transition to 100% full time. And for me, being a teacher is dope because you have a good salary, you have benefits, you get paid once a month throughout the year, all 12 months. But the real estate is the complete opposite. You pay for benefits, pocket. It's 100% commission based. So some months you're doing well. Other months you're making $0. So ever since I was 22 years old, I'm 35 now, I had a monthly income. I had benefits, but now that's all wiped away. And I knew that going in, but once you're in it, you're like realizing, oh, I'm not gonna get paid this month. I'll have the benefits are really expensive out of pocket. So that was the biggest transition for me. But I kind of knew that going in. But it's one thing to know about it, but once you're living in it 24/7, like, oh, this is it. This is the life that I chose to live. But no regrets looking back.
Did you have a mentor or any type of mentorship when you first got into real estate that kind of helped you propel yourself in real estate at all?
My first 2 years, not really. A lot of people in my office, if I had questions for them, they would always give me, their undivided attention. But it wasn't like one person I tagged along with in those first 2 years. I kind of just figured it out myself.
Okay.
And over time, I got a lot of good partnerships and friends in the industry around year 3, 4, and 5 that helped me grow my business. But the first 2 years, it was like 100% on me. And again, I was a teacher full time, so I wasn't able to go to the real estate office multiple days a week and like be around the other brokers in the vicinity. It's like I was focused on being a teacher. Then after work, I was working on my business. So I kind of pretty much figured it out on my own.
Yeah. And when you were doing both professions as a teacher and real estate, can you walk me through what a day looked like when you were doing both professions and now what it looks like now?
Yeah, for sure. There's one year that stuck out. So I transitioned from elementary to middle school. So I went from Federal Way School District to Seattle. And I was coaching the school's basketball team. But I had clients that had to help at the same time. So our practices ended at like 5:45. I had clients that wanted to see a house throughout the week. So I had my real estate clothes in my office ready to go. So when basketball practice was over at 5:45, by like 6 o'clock, I'm changing my real estate clothes. I'm driving down to like Renton or Tacoma. One time I had to drive down to Olympia. That took like an hour and a half because again, we're dealing with Seattle traffic.
Yeah, traffic the whole time.
So like 6 p.m. traffic on weekdays, no joke. But yeah, I'll have my clothes with me at my school office, ready to go. If needed. Obviously, weekends teachers have off, so I was able to do showings that way. Versus now, I have a lot more flexibility in my schedule because I'm not required to be in the school building 180 days out of the year from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So I have a lot more flexibility now than I did as a teacher.
And how are you able to manage your time now that you have that flexibility versus having that structure of I have to be here from 8 to 4 for the school year versus being like, okay, I have all this free time. How am I going to structure it in a way for it to be manageable and successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now I'm tapping in with the resources through my company. They do a lot of meetings on via Zoom. There's a lot of trainings they offer, any type of real estate seminar. A lot of those happen during the weekdays around lunchtime. So I'm able to go to those events, make connections, learn more about the industry. During the daytime, I'm on YouTube a lot. So I'm learning a lot of different techniques and strategies of how to become a better real estate agent during the daytime through those trainings, through those videos. So I feel like I'm redefining my skill set more so now that I have more attention focused on real estate.
And self-promotion, because I feel like that's one thing that you have to do as a real estate agent. So how are you able to self-promote, whether it be just cold calling, reaching out to friends? How are you able to establish yourself in the real estate industry?
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing I definitely struggled with in my first 2, 3 years of real estate, because I think a lot of real estate brokers can relate. You just assume that people are going to use you because you know them. You seem cool. Like when you see them, it's like it's all love, it's all good. But then you realize you have to prove yourself first. And I think I had to prove myself even more because, again, I was a PE teacher. And you work at the schools. Teachers don't really see PE teachers in the same light. They kind of look at us like, "Oh, you're just that teacher that plays games," and people outside
just kicks it.
Just kick it. And a lot of people who don't work in the school building don't see PE teachers in the same light. So when I first got started, when I was telling like my colleagues I became a real estate agent, they were like, "Wait, how are you going to do both real estate and teaching? Plus, you're a PE teacher. It's not like you're a math teacher, a science teacher." And I felt like I had to prove myself. Like, hey, I know, even though my first year I had no idea what I was talking about because I was new to the business. But then I realized I got to prove myself. I got to prove that I know exactly what I'm talking about. So going back to your question about self-promotion, I really focused on the social media aspect. So I have a real estate page for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm doing a lot of videos of me talking about real estate because people just see me as Gus, the PE teacher, the basketball coach. But I got to show them that I can be also a very effective, knowledgeable real estate broker. So I do a lot of videos on Instagram talking about different things going on in real estate, doing home tours, doing analysis, home buying tips, home selling tips. And I feel like I'm not naturally that great on camera, but it's a show and prove type of industry. You got to show people you know exactly what you're talking about. And I had a little chip on my shoulder being that PE teacher, not being seen as a person who's coming from a very smart profession as a PE teacher. PE teachers, put some respect on our names. We're doing a lot of
for sure. A lot of work, for sure.
A lot of good classroom management, in my mind, is harder in PE than is in the typical classroom because you have so much equipment they have to deal with.
Yeah.
There's a lot more liability.
It's the place to release their energy too. So it's like trying to maintain that and teach them. It's a lot.
Yeah, like I would wish any person to try to teach a middle school class hockey.
Oh.
Like that is tough if you don't have the right skill set to manage a classroom. But yeah, with self-promotion, just going out there and just showing and proving you know what you're talking about, and going out having conversation with people in the industry so you can soak up some game as well. So when you have a question that comes up about real estate, because it's a very what's the word I'm looking for? Real estate. A lot of people have opinions about real estate. There's a lot of different viewpoints about the industry, about brokers, about agents, especially nowadays with all these shows on Netflix like Selling Sunset and Selling Manhattan, which are not realistic at all. So people have preconceived notions about real estate. So when I promote myself, I'm trying to come at it through an authentic point of view and a knowledgeable point of view and a personable, you know, approach as well. So that's things I'm still continuing to work on, but yeah, self-promotion is key in this game.
And so in real estate, obviously, like you have to build that trust because you're buying homes for people, and you know, so they have to build that trust. What have you done and still do now to build that trust with people when you first, whether you know them now or like old friends, when you're working with them? How do you establish trust with them?
I think just, you know, talking to them to build that, it first starts as a relationship. Like everybody that has chosen me as a real estate broker has known me in some capacity, whether it be high school, college, work, just out and about. We met each other in Seattle. So everybody knows me just as a person first. When I meet somebody, I'm not like, hey, I'm Gus, the real estate agent. I've never introduced myself as a real estate broker because I don't see myself as just a real estate broker. I have an 11-year teaching background. Real estate is something that I do, but you know, I enjoy stuff outside of real estate as well. I'm a very big sports nerd. Like I love, you know, NBA, I love UFC. I'm just a person first. But hey, if you have questions about real estate, oh yeah, we can have a conversation and dive into that. A lot of people in the real estate industry do put out there, hey, I'm a real estate agent. And that's great. That works. Everybody, you know, does things differently. It's not for me to judge, but I'm like Gus first. You know, I have a story personally that does not have anything to do with real estate. So once I know you as a person, hey, oh yeah, Gus does real estate as well. Let's ask him some questions. Then we can have a conversation about that. So just knowing somebody as a person first. And also for myself, just being comfortable with, you know, who I am. It's not really related to your question, but it just made me, you know, think about it. Like I've been working really hard on like self-care, my mindset, and that's definitely transformed the person I am today. And if I am focusing on myself, focusing on the right mindset, personally, it'll all flow. Personally, professionally, relationships, it's all going to flow well. So if I'm coming from a place of authenticity based on my own practices, the right people will manifest in my life to have that type of connection with, whether it be friendships, real estate. I'm a teaching consultant as well, or just like kicking it. So as long as I, you know, focus on myself first and stay on top of the industry, knowing my P's and Q's about what's going on in the market, then the rest of it work itself out.
And so I want to actually circle back to talking about the months you talked about when you know, might have months where you're not going to get paid. So how are you able to establish, you know, maybe there was a time where you had a 2-month span where you didn't get paid at all. How were you able to maintain like confidence and being like, okay, I can get out of this or something's going to improve? How do you maintain that positivity through those times?
You know, for me, it's all about daily routines and consistency. If I'm doing everything that I believe is working, it's going to work itself out. And, you know, for me, I'm a very routine, regimen type person. Maybe it comes from my teaching background, but like I wake up at, you know, 5 or 6 a.m. every morning. You know, I go to the gym for an hour, then I stretch at home for an hour. Meditation for 20, 30 minutes. I've been inconsistent with that, but I have that morning routine first. Make sure that like I'm doing good physically, which made me feel good mentally, then emotionally. Then I took care of myself. Then I can go at 9 a.m., check in, emails, do all that I need to do as far as phone calls.
Mm.
So it starts first thing in the morning. Am I doing the daily routine that I need to do Monday through Friday? Then at 9, 10 a.m., I'm able to, hit the emails, hit the calls, when needed. If I'm doing that on a consistent basis, Monday through Friday, yeah, it's going to be weeks, months of no business. But if I'm hitting my daily routine, then if I feel like it's working, the reason I do it because I feel like it's working. If I feel like the routine's not working, I will switch it up. But at some point, the results are going to show improve if I can stay consistent with the daily routine.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that maintaining that consistency, especially when it's on at your own pace, and it's like I have to do this versus being like most jobs where it's like it's part of the job to do it. It's maintaining that consistency and that type of practice goes a long way. So that's huge, man. I actually want to ask you a little bit more about the real estate side. So when you fully went into it, was there ever a point of you almost regretting it? Because you've obviously it's only been a year, but has there ever been a point of okay, holy cow, starting September, or August, I'm not going back to the school where I'm consistently getting paid monthly and having that, that net, so was there ever a point in time where you were like, okay, this might have been a mistake?
A mistake? No. But when you go through a month of not selling houses, you do deeply think about the decision that you made. But at the same time, I knew going in, this is something I want to do. This is something that I feel very passionate about. And worst comes to worst, I can go back, to teaching. It's not the end of the world. I still have my teaching degree. It's still active. But no, I never once regretted my decision. It's kind of like an NFL, NBA draft prospect. So when players get drafted, there's players that have a very high ceiling but a low floor. We have players with a very high floor but not as high ceiling. Maybe they're a 4-year senior from college basketball. I know, as a teacher, I'm leaving my teaching salary behind and the benefits behind. So maybe short term, the floor might be lower, but the ceiling might be higher. I told my dad this recently for all the NBA fans out there. No disrespect, but there's one year where Dwight Howard and Emeka Okafor, there was a big debate about who's going to be the number one pick in the draft. Dwight Howard started out high school, super raw, athletic, but everybody agreed his ceiling was super high. Emeka Okafor, 4-year player at UConn, I believe was national champion, national player of the year. Everybody's like, worst case scenario, he's going to be an all-star, a 10-year veteran at center. So the conversation was, do you want the player with the higher ceiling or the higher floor? Dwight Howard or Emeka Okafor? And for me, I was like, well, teaching is like Emeka Okafor. I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to chase that ceiling, which is the Dwight Howard example.
Yeah, no, that's a good comparison too. That works out perfect. So with this, you talked about earlier about with all the shows and all the real estate shows that are going on. And I guess I'll extend that question is the saturation, because I feel like a lot of the times, and I'm sure you probably get frustrated when you hear this, is somebody's like, oh, I just want to get into real estate because it's just popular right now, and then watching these shows. And what do you think is the biggest frustration when it comes to that? Or if you when you obviously these most of the people, but when these watch these shows and they have this preconception notion, notion of how they think things are going to go, how are you able to separate yourself from literally reality versus the stuff that's shown on TV?
Honestly, I don't think too much about it. I don't really watch those TV shows. I've seen clips. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 episodes. But I see it through a lens similar to PE teaching. So, when you see a movie or a TV show and they show a PE class, it's the same thing. It's like an old guy with like a starter jacket playing dodgeball, not doing anything.
Sitting in a chair, yeah.
Exactly. And I know as a 11-year teacher that's not what PE classes look like, but that's the stereotype.
Yeah.
So I've never really focused on like what the stereotype or what the public notion is about my career, because I'm living it every single day. And the fact that more people are getting into real estate in Seattle, like Seattle has one of the highest agents per capita because of the tech industry. Obviously, home prices are higher than most major U.S. cities. But I have no problem with that. If people want to follow their dreams, if real estate is their dream, then go for it. Actually, like 1 year, it was like my 4th or 5th year of being a real estate broker. No lie. More people ask me how to become a real estate broker instead of, hey, can you help me buy a house?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because again, this was before like YouTube was really big, and like even before Netflix shows, like more people wanted to become a real estate agent. I had friends from college like reach out to me. Like off the air, I can tell you who asked me because we know the same people. But like, hey Gus, I see you doing real estate. Like, how you become an agent? And I'll tell them unconditionally, like, hey, this is what you do. This is the hours that you need. There's like a real estate course, a real estate book. You can take it online. You can do it in class. And I'm just giving this information unconditionally. And some of these people have become very successful real estate agents. Some I have not heard back from since. And even the ones that did really well, I didn't get no money from that. And nor was I expecting any money. I just did it because, hey, we have a previous connection through college or through high school. Like, I'll give you the game because I feel like, hey, you came to me for a reason. You trust me with this information. So I'm going to give it to you and, wish you the best. If you need anything, let me know. And that's how I approach, helping clients as well, because a lot of people ask me questions about buying or selling a house, and they may not use me as a real estate broker, or they might not buy for another 5 to 10 years. But I feel comfortable giving that information unconditionally, being a resource. Like sometimes you can do stuff just for the sake of doing it versus looking to get paid.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and honestly, my first year or two of real estate, I was thinking a little too much about the money, and it was messing with me. And around that time, I got into like more self-care mindset. And once I stopped worrying about the wrong things, the rest kind of fell into place.
And I respect that so much, because I feel like, a lot of the fields, I mean, whether it be personal training, real estate, when you first start, you feel lonely. So you reach out to people. And the most frustrating thing, I think, when I first started personal training was either no responses or they would just give you minimal information. They just saw you as like competition. You know what I'm saying? And I think, in real estate, I think that could be the same thing, because the potential for making a lot of money is out there. So, and having the mindset of like, okay, this dude's doing the same job as me. He might try to take something I want, versus being like, hey, dude, here's the game. This is what you need to do. Grow, do what you need to do, and hopefully you're successful. So I totally respect you for that, because it's very hard to find type of people who want others to succeed and genuinely want them to succeed. So I commend you for that, man, a lot.
No, I appreciate that. I feel like we need more people like that out there in society. Like, everybody wants to get theirs, but like what's the movie? Paid in Full. Everybody everybody eats B. So everybody can eat. There's enough, business going around for everybody to eat, for everybody to succeed. And, at some point, I feel like the universe will bring that good karma, back to my life or back to your life if you're giving free game, essentially. If you give free game, somehow the world, the universe is going to pay you back. I truly believe that.
Yeah. And I respect it a lot, man. And you're a good dude. Obviously, some of the listeners might not know who you are, but man, like, from what I know of you, you're a good dude. So that kind of transitions to my next question. What separates yourself from any other broker out there,
Yeah, I think it's my teaching background. Being a teacher for 11 years, I feel like a lot of skills transfer over from teaching to real estate. You have to learn how to talk to individuals as an individual. Everybody has different wants and needs. And you have to, like, as a teacher, I can't talk to every single student the same way because everybody has different personalities. Everybody has different things they're bringing from their home life. So I have to learn how to, adapt my style so I can effectively communicate the goal I want for that student. Same thing with, real estate clients. Everybody's price range will be a little bit different. Some people are ready to buy ASAP. Some people need time to improve their credit score or save up. So there might be a 3-5 year goal. So I have to adapt the way I, talk with people, and it's natural to me. As a teacher, I feel like I'm a very empathetic person. I don't see it as it is a business, but I see it as building relationships. I think we talked about earlier in the pod. Teaching is all about relationships. Real estate is not so I used to work at Champ Sports at the mall, and that is strictly transactions. They want shoe size 12 in the J's. I got you. That's it. I'll never see the person.
They know exactly what they want and how. Yeah.
But real estate's not like that. Real estate is, hey, how do I buy a house? What's the process? What are the steps? You give them the steps, oh, okay, well, I'm not ready, so let's touch base 6 months, 12 months from now. So that relationship aspect is really important. Honestly, especially in Seattle, everybody knows 3 to 4 different agents at least. So we all have access essentially to the same things. If you want to buy that house, honestly, any agent can help you buy that house. But what agent's going to give you the tools and the resources that you need so you can maximize the potential of you getting that house, or maybe a better house, or improving your credit score. So if I come at it through a relationship aspect, I think that's what, differentiates me between other real estate agents. I feel like teachers are superheroes, honestly. Not just saying that because I'm a teacher, but you work in schools. Teachers are very special people. It takes a very special person to be a teacher. I honestly feel like more teachers can become real estate agents more than real estate agents can become teachers. If I'm saying that right. I feel like teachers are more adaptable in doing something like that. Real estate agents, there's a lot of interesting people out there. I don't think they would be effective teachers. But I'm just saying that's how special being a teacher is. And, I worked in Federal Way, I worked in Seattle, and this is communities that I absolutely, enjoy being a part of. So, real estate, obviously, that's the biggest investment that most people are going to make. But the way I look at it is well, as a teacher, these are actual family, not investments. This is the most important thing that the family has is their kids. These kids are in our school building 180 days out the year. I have to take genuine care of every single student in my classroom, which is if I mess this up, this kid can maybe not have the best life if they leave my classroom and I give them the effective strategies to help them be successful. Real estate, yes, there's money involved, but I feel like teaching's harder, and I feel like I'm able to apply the teaching skill set over to real estate.
And so before I ask about the teacher salary consultant position, what advice would you give to people who are starting out in real estate and wanting to get into it from the jump?
I would say get into it for the right reasons. If you're doing it just because you think it'll make 6 figures out of the gate and you're doing it for money, then I would say don't do it. I mean, people can be successful thinking about money, but my advice would be do not do it. Do it for the relationship aspect and have a long-term goal in mind. Everybody wants that instant gratification. And, real estate's not that. It's going to be a long grind. You have to have that handbook, a hustler's handbook of how to become a real estate agent. So, make sure that you make good connections to people in the industry that you trust and have the mindset that's going to be a minimum 2+ years. 2+ years to really get the ball rolling for your career. So have the long-term mindset and, focus on your self-care, because it's going to be some days or weeks or months where things are not flowing along. So you got to go back to your self and am I doing my daily routines? Am I doing my daily practice to make sure I'm good? If I'm good and stay consistent with my business goals and tasks, then everything else will play itself out.
And I like that advice of the self-care portion, because I think people when they get discouraged, it's either they completely stop or they burn themselves out even more, So I think the advice of self-care and taking a step back and taking care of themselves is huge.
And, honestly, so like, if I can say a story real quick.
Yeah, for sure. You're good.
About the whole like self-care aspect, where it really clicked for me. About 3 years ago, I tore my Achilles tendon. And I did playing adult league basketball. So I'm playing adult league basketball once a week. And I tore my Achilles. And for those that have injuries, I was basically on crutches for 2 months. And at that time, I was living by myself. And, I feel like everything does happen for a reason. I was super fortunate when that Achilles surgery happened because, one, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the first floor.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
there's no elevator. There's no elevator in my building. Like, wow, this is really fortunate that I tore my Achilles by living on the first floor. That's great. Also, I was still teaching at the time. This was during the pandemic. So we're still teaching online. So I was able to still do my job as a teacher.
Perfect time for that to happen.
Perfect time for the injury to happen. So I was able to get paid through my teaching job. And for real estate, I had a team around me that do all the tasks in person, like go to the houses, inspections. So I had a team to help me out with that. So honestly, from a professional aspect, everything worked out. But then at the same time, I was home for 2 months, and at that time I was single, so like I was living by myself, so I had a lot of time to myself. And it was April, May, so the weather started to get really nice. So I'm on like social media, seeing all my friends have fun. They're outside. Things are kind of opening up more because it's the pandemic. And I started to like get in my own head around like week 2, week 3. And then this is like an 8-week process where I can't really do anything. And then I was staying inside the whole time. I didn't want to be out and about, going to restaurants, going to bars. I went to the hospital, physical therapy, and I just stayed home. I had some friends and my dad come visit me, but for the most part, it's by myself. And I wanted to be by myself. But around like week 3, I was like, I gotta just, focus on me. When I am off crutches in week 8, week 9, I want to be the best version of myself. So as I mentioned before, my daily routine, I pretty much tripled down on all my routines. So I got back into reading. I was reading like an hour a day. I was meditating for at least 30 to 60 minutes per day. I was stretching for at least 1 to 2 hours per day.
Oh, dang.
Well, because I got that idea from David Goggins in his book, Can't Hurt Me. He talked about how like just stretching releases all that tension in your body, especially in the shoulders and the hamstrings. And I was reading that book when I was rehabbing. So stretching for like an hour a day, meditating for at least 30 minutes, reading. I was doing daily gratitude journals every single day. So those 4 things I was doing from week 3 to week 8 every single day. And it was easier to do that then because life slowed down. But I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to focus on these 4 things on a daily basis. And when week 8 happened, week 9 happened, when I was back outside, like it was the best version of myself. Like my friends could tell like my energy was different when I came out because I had like less worries. I was not worried about the wrong things. I wasn't worried about, getting gratification through like social media or worrying about what people thought about me. I was just 100% myself. And life started to get a lot better. Like my relationships got better. The business started growing a lot more. I was having more fun teaching again. Like my life was more holistic, more whole. And I guess having that Achilles injury was the best thing to happen to me. Because if I had that 8 weeks by myself to focus on self-care, I would not be the person I am today. I won't have the confidence to maybe switch careers, or I won't have the success in my real estate business. Maybe my last few years of teaching, which I feel like my best years of teaching, I feel like I got everything just right as a teacher, maybe all that stuff wouldn't have happened if I didn't tear my Achilles and focus on myself for that 8-week span. So like, as you know, I'm out and about, I have 2 working legs again. I'm not as consistent with those things, but I try to be because I know how effective those are.
And you've brought that up multiple times of having like these routines of like, you know, whether it be stretching, working out, meditating. What got you in that mindset to even do that? Because, you know, I think, you know, sometimes people just can't get in that mindset of just doing it out of the blue and be like, all right, these are the things I'm going to do to be successful. What kind of got you in that mindset to just be like, hey, okay, at 6 o'clock I'm doing this, 6:30 I'm doing this, to kind of keep yourself motivated? What got you to maintain that, or to do it in the first place and maintain it?
Yeah, for sure. Around the time I got into real estate, my first like year or two, you know, business was not booming at all. You know, I was kind of struggling, and I was kind of embarrassed that my first year of real estate, I didn't sell any houses. My first year of real estate, and it was kind of like embarrassing because I told my friends and my colleagues I was a real estate agent, but I haven't sold any houses yet. And like my mood started to shift, and I was like, man, there's like something mentally, like I'm in a rut. I'm in a rut right now, and I randomly came across a podcast. Randomly, I don't know how I found it. Maybe it was on Spotify, messing around, and it was called "The School of Greatness" by Lewis Howes. And I'm starting listening to his podcast, and like he has different guests on the business world, athletes, life coaches, and you know, as men, I never heard somebody on TV or on audio talk about like mindset and things like that. And I was like, yo, this is really fascinating. This is really cool. And I just really got into it. So I started listening to more podcasts out there. School of Greatness was one. I think Jay Shetty got popular around the same time. Think Like a Monk. And yeah, slowly started getting into reading a little bit too, but mostly just on the podcast front. And I used to work out in the evenings, but then I started transitioning, you know, to the mornings. And, you know, honestly, I didn't know how much of an effect it had on me. Like I was listening to the podcast, but I wasn't really sure if it was like working. But then it's crazy. Like I went to Colorado for my friend's wedding. He was getting married in Colorado, and he was getting married in a town called Glenwood Springs.
Okay.
And which is 2 hours away from Denver. So like you have to rent a car to go from Denver to Glenwood Springs. So like I'm listening to the podcast at this time, and like I was single, but I didn't want to like tag along with my friends, but I really wanted to go. So I was like, you know what? Let me just rent a car, and I'll go to my friend's wedding, but then I'll stay an extra 4 days just to do some solo tripping. Be a solo trip, and that's something I never thought I would do. But I just felt like the confidence and like it felt like just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I'm driving around Colorado by myself after the wedding, listening to the podcast even more. Like I'm heavy into the podcast, listening to different episodes for hours and hours in. And again, I don't know if this stuff is like working. Like I'm doing stuff that I usually want to do. I was like, okay, maybe it's having an effect. But I was walking around my hotel in downtown Denver by myself, and this couple was like next to me. They were like, hey, sir, do you know how to get to such and such? I'm like, oh, no, I'm not from here. I'm just visiting from out of town. It was like, oh, well, you're walking around like you know where you're going. I'm like, oh. I'm like, no, I just am walking around. He's like, oh, well, you keep that same confidence. I'm like, oh, okay. And in my mind, I wasn't doing anything. I was just walking.
Yeah.
Something like he's walking like he lives in downtown. Yeah. So I was like, man, maybe this podcast stuff is working because like I'm walking different. And then I was driving around Colorado, and it was all spontaneous trip. I really had no plans outside of going to my friend's wedding. And then I passed like a zip line course in Colorado Springs. I'm like, oh, it's a zip line course. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm like, man, forget it. So I did a little UE. I went to the zip line course, and when I got there, there's like groups of people outside the front door waiting to get called up. Like you have a group of like 10 kids here, like 5 people here. I'm just by myself. And the instructor calls out names of groups of people to start the zipline course. He calls my name. He's like, hey, Gus. And I raise my hand. And he's like, are you by yourself? And I'm like, yeah, I'm by myself. And I wasn't tripping about it. I was like, yo, I'm just here, peace of mind. They ended up putting me with like a dad and his two kids who were like 13, 14. I'm just by myself on the zip line, and I had an amazing time.
Oh, that's dope.
And I feel like if I get into like the whole like mindset and self-care, that podcast thing, there's no way I would be comfortable ziplining by myself with all these people.
Yeah.
Or confident enough traveling by myself around Colorado, for 4 days. So that trip really like flipped a switch in my mind. Like, oh, all this stuff is working. The daily routines, like focusing on self. So when I got back from the trip, I just kind of always stuck to some type of routine because I could see the type of effect that had on me during that trip.
That's huge, man. That's really cool. And it's like, it's that, subconscious, it's just like, okay, I'm doing this, I know I'm doing this, but something in your subconscious is like, okay, I'm going to do something slightly different, each day to make those improvements. And you don't even realize you're doing it until you take a step back. Like, holy cow, I'm doing stuff I've never seen, or somebody coming up to you and be like, this dude looks confident. He runs the show. Like, he knows something's going on around here. So yeah, that's really cool to see, man. Real quick, I wanted to ask a little bit about your other position as a teacher salary consultant. Can you give us some information on that and what that entails?
Yeah. So, as a public school teacher, every teacher gets paid based on a salary schedule. So if you Google teacher salary schedule, each school district has their own teacher salary schedule. So each teacher, regardless of subject, grade level, they all get paid based on a schedule. It's based on different criteria: the number of years you taught, your degree, if you have a master's or a bachelor's, and the number of credits and clock hours you earned. And for whatever reason, teachers are not given the resources to maximize their salary by earning those credits and clock hours. Everybody knows this schedule exists, but nobody is told, hey, this is what you need to do to get 90 clock hours or 90 credits to maximize on a salary schedule.
Know all about that.
It's like a hidden.
Yeah, you have to put in work to go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's like secret out there. And I didn't know anything about this until like year 6, year 7 of my teaching career. And a colleague, he told me like, hey, you can earn clock hours by doing this online course, which allows you to register your lesson planning when you're organizing your classroom. Pretty much anything you're doing outside of school hours, you can log those in on the online course. And I didn't believe him at first, but then he showed me his pay stub. It's like, oh, you're getting paid. Okay, you're actually on top of the salary schedule.
Yeah.
So I did the course as well, just as a teacher. So before I left teaching, I actually maximized my teaching salary based on the schedule. So I made the most money that you can make as a teacher before I left teaching. Then when I left teaching, I randomly met the person who's in charge of that online course. It's like a Washington State organization. I just met him randomly at a conference, and I told him, hey, like, I use your course. It's really dope. And I don't know if you know this too, but before I got into this consulting job as a teacher consultant, I started a Facebook group called Max Salary Teachers, because when I was a teacher, I learned how to maximize my salary. I got my master's when I was a full-time teacher. I earned the clock hours and credits needed to maximize on the salary schedule. I did my national boards certification, which pays you more as a teacher. So I did all the things as a teacher to get the most money, but a lot of people, they know how to achieve those things. Or they think it's too hard because they think, oh yeah, I don't want to do national boards. It's too hard. I don't want to earn credits.
A lot of extra work. Yeah.
Teachers are overworked, and I get it. But I was able to basically crack the code while I was a teacher, and I made a Facebook group just to share resources, again, unconditionally. Like, I wasn't getting paid at the time. It's like, hey, this is how you make more money. These are online resources for your national boards, for your masters, for your clock hours. And this is all stuff that I did personally. So I made that Facebook group, and then randomly I met the owner of that online course for clock hours. And he heard about my Facebook group. It's like, hey, you should be a consultant since you already did the work when you were a teacher and you're giving information for free. So you might as well become a consultant for our company.
Yeah.
So now I can help teachers maximize their salaries by earning credits and clock hours to make the most money as a teacher. So that's something I've started like 3-4 months ago.
Oh.
And stuff I was already doing for free, but now
Yeah.
I just basically do the same thing I was doing for free, but now I can work for them as well.
That's awesome, man. And see, just like you being a good person, going out there and just giving free game, and then there's people like, hey, man, I want to help you monetize that. So, I mean, like you said, good karma comes full circle, man.
Yeah, man. It's crazy, like how I met that guy in the first place. It was just by chance. I met him, and but yeah, everything happens, for a reason, and yeah, I'm glad that I made the jump and the transition from teaching, because you never know what opportunities may present itself. And also, I want to say that I love my teaching job, and at the end of the day, I did it for 11 years.
Yeah,
and when I was teaching, I was 100% present. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. I don't regret anything about teaching, but I think now I'm just focused on my next chapter as far as the business side of things. And, I appreciate all the fellow teachers I met, all the students that I have pleasure of teaching. Actually, if you look on my TikTok, so I have a TikTok and Instagram, but most of my TikTok followers are my former students from middle school. I don't follow any of them back.
Yeah.
But most of the comments on my TikTok videos are former students of mine, which I think is really cool. That means I have some type of positive effect on them. If they feel comfortable, commenting on my boring real estate videos. They have nothing. They know nothing about. They're 14 years old and they're commenting. Hey, Mr. Montgomery. I think that's dope. So transitioning from teaching, I didn't quit teaching. I just transitioned into another chapter of my life, and I'm happy with the opportunities that presented itself thus far.
And I commend you for that. I think a lot of people get in this mindset of, oh, I went to school for this, or this is what I'm doing. This is all I have. People know me as this, so getting that mindset, because I've gotten stuck in it of being I'm a personal trainer. That's who I am. Oh, yeah. I want to get into working in schools, but I'm a personal trainer. What are people going to think of me? So making that transition of just being hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I love, and I'm going to make that jump. And you still have, a little bit of a foot in the school districts and working with teachers, and helping them maximize. So, being able to still help in that way too, you still be able to dabble in both sides. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I never imagined, going to Wazoo, majoring in health and fitness education, that this would be the life that I live today. But, everything does happen for a reason. And all the connections that I made, all the people that I met with in my journey at this moment has shaped the person I am, today. And as I mentioned before, with the Achilles injury, that happened at the exact right time. So it's just funny how life presents itself.
Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like you've given a lot of great information, and I want to thank you firsthand for coming on to the podcast, man. We've known each other for a long time, and I love what you're doing, man. You're going out there grinding, and I'm seeing it. I'm getting my little schedules in the mail and stuff, man. I love to see it, man. And you've been doing it for years, so that consistency is showing in your success, man. I'm very proud of what you're doing.
No, I appreciate that, Easton. I appreciate you starting the Hustler's Handbook podcast. I think a lot of people have talked about starting a podcast, but you actually went out and did it. And you've had a lot of guests through connections that you made in your previous life. And it shows a lot about you, that people are accepting the requests to be vulnerable and share their stories to a random audience. So I just commend you of the connections and relationships that you made, and actually making this podcast, not just talking about it, but being about it and growing. And I'm very happy to see how much more you grow in the future.
I appreciate that a lot, Gus. Do you have any other information you'd like to give, or where people can find you on social media, or just out and about? Where can they find Gus?
Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, if you Google me, Gus Montgomery, my real estate Google reviews, my pages will pop up. Instagram at Gus Real Estate, Facebook, Gus Montgomery Real Estate. Again, all that's on Google.
Okay.
Just Google Gus Montgomery. Montgomery spelled the same way as a capital of Alabama. And yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again for coming on. I think the guests are going to love this podcast, man. You gave a lot of great information. You're a good dude, and I wish you all the best in your future, man, and keep doing great things.
All right, appreciate you. So have fun, man. Let's talk again.
Yeah, for sure, man. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Hustler's Handbook podcast. I hope you found today's episode as inspiring and insightful as I did. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow hustlers. Keep pushing, keep striving, and remember, the hustle never stops. See you next time.